So Katie is coming up with new paddles. The first thing you notice is really how thick the blade is. So explain to us a bit of like why you felt like you wanted to design a paddle, and then how you came up with this design.
So about around last year, I started really going deep into paddles, modifying, making my own, trying to get a little bit of an advantage for downwind race season. The more I experimented, the more I learned, and I started noticing some patterns that I was extremely familiar with from foils. What I found is that when you're using a normal, like a proper paddle technique, most of your thrust from the blade is actually being created the same way a wing creates lift. You're doing a lot of pushing down, creating flow across the surface at a high angle of attack. What I noticed with most of the blades I tried was because they were so thin, at the slow speeds and high loads that we have subfoiling, they were just stalling out and not working very efficiently. I had to go all the way up to like 160 square centimeters until I found a flat blade that I wasn't stalling. So I thought, hey, what do we do on the foils to prevent stalling? Well, we put a nice leading edge on it. So I tried modified some paddles, put a leading edge on it, and did a little back-to-back testing, and it was like super blown away at the difference, mostly in the efficiency in the first few strokes and the smoothness through the water.
For sure. I mean, that's what I felt right away. It was the difference between like a really like grunty paddle that's kind of like super on and off power, and a really smooth entry, smooth like power delivery. Everything was like more like consistent, not necessarily like on and off, and it totally makes sense. It's, to me, like right away I assimilated with like riding, like when you ride a tiny or like a smaller foil, like let's say a race foil that's super thin, that's gonna, at the stall, when you hit the stall speed, it just like drops. Like compared to a thicker, like let's say even a beginner foil, really thick, that's gonna grab on the water. And so it's kind of like that principle, and it makes sense because we are not going fast, we are putting so much force to it, and if you have something really thin, just like a foil, a fast foil, slow speed, you load it, it just drops.
Totally.
Totally. That it definitely makes like a ton of sense. And what about like size of the blade?
Yeah, so this let me go down from 160 square centimeters to like closer to 100. So we have three sizes. The biggest is a 105, the medium is a 95, and the smallest is an 87. And personally, my preference at my weight of around 85 kilos is the medium. I find I just get the most efficiency for the amount of force that I put in, which is like pretty high on say a flat water start. I think bigger riders will like the larger blade, and smaller riders will like the smaller blade. It just depends on how much force you're asking from the blade.
Is there any like relation to skill level in terms of like how you pick your size?
Generally, I would say the beginners will want a larger blade. Not necessarily for the paddle up, mostly for the bracing. I find the large blade, one, because they're thick, they have quite a bit of flotation. The large blade just is way more stable when you're waiting for that bump or paddling out or waiting for a wave, and you need some extra stability.
The only thing that's kind of like a bummer for you is you wanted to design a really good paddle to be more competitive, but now you sell it, so now everybody has access to it.
Yeah, it's a little, I have to keep pushing.
So there must be something you are not telling us.
Yeah, I think there's a huge potential, at least for subfoiling and the speeds and loads that we're at, to increase the efficiency and performance of your paddle. We're limited by how much force our bodies can produce, and the more of that force turns into thrust, the easier it'll be to get up.
And that applies to any level, whether you are a beginner and your technique is maybe not as good, and you still need to be able to use all that bad technique that you know to generate the most speed, to all the way to like your technique is perfect and you are trying to take off on a tiny foil.
Yeah, another factor for the stability that I'm pretty excited about with this shape is I call it the high offset. So a lot of the beginner focused paddle blades right now have the word is 15-degree angle, and what I found I liked about that high blade angle is it offset the pressure from the line of the shaft, and so it created a paddle that tracks really straight and is very stable through the water. But the downside of a 15-degree angle is at these low speeds, you're putting the blade in at an even higher angle of attack into the water. And so I actually found with the thin blades, reversing them was more efficient. It was just less stable. So you can see it's a bit of a weird outline. There's a lot of material out in the tip, and there's a lot of curvature through here. Most of the area of this paddle is actually at 5.5 degrees. So it's a fairly low angle paddle, but it's that all of that area is very far away from the axis of this shaft. So it's a paddle that is super stable and predictable through the water.
And what about, again, we talked about it when we were talking about the foils, durability. Mm-hmm. Durability is also a big thing.
Yeah.
So talk about the durability on this swing.
I've had too many paddles, and I've seen too many paddles from people who are getting into it or even really experienced that, make a small mistake, hit their paddle on the foil or the board too hard and crack the thing. And one advantage to having such a thick blade is its durability. You can hit one side and it might ding one side, but you're really not compromising much of the structure of the paddle. So our experience, testing these blades with the team and lending them out to people is that they're just ridiculously durable. We've had a really hard time getting any of these to fail, and I don't know if we have had any actually fail yet. It's pretty impressive.
So, and then even though there is a lot of material, they remain super light.
Yeah. The first samples we got were built just like a normal paddle. So you have a high density core, you have your light carbon skin on the outside. And I thought, hey, we have so much more structure, we don't need to build them as stiff. We can let the thickness do the work. So we made the core lighter, and we made the layup a little lighter, and they're super light. They come with a little bit of a texture grip on the shaft, and for the shops, the blade comes pre-installed on the shaft, and the handle is separate. So
you can cut it.
So you can cut it, but I wanted this to come pre-installed so that you don't have to worry about the thing leaking when you put it together.
Yeah.
That's already set and sealed.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was great.